Hi everyone. Um, I am just trying to set this all up because I have some people. So I'm going to be both on Instagram and on Facebook. Just doing this live broadcast. So I'm just going to wait for people to come on. So, you know, if you're watching the playback and you see me going back and forth, just know that I'm both on Instagram and on Facebook Live. Hi, Suzanne. I'm just waiting for a few more people to come on. So yeah, I'm both on Instagram Live and then also on Facebook. So I'm going to see what happens. I hope this is live. Yes, this is live on Instagram Live. I'm just going to give it a few more minutes. How was your day, Suzanne? I'm just going to give you a few more minutes to just let a couple of people join in. Hi. Hey ladies, there on Instagram. I just want everyone to know that I am on both Instagram Live and on Facebook Live. So if you see me switching between the two, just know and understand that I'm switching between the two. So I want to make sure I get all the comments and respond to everyone. So you had a great day, Suzanne? Good, relaxing. Hey Felicia. So here are a couple of things. If you guys saw the post, you may know what I'm talking about. If you didn't, you don't know what I'm talking about, that is totally fine. I wanted to get on here. I did a post early this week, and it was just talking about the dishonoring of women in the church. I made a comment that if you anything that irritates you, or someone told me if something irritates you, if it frustrates you, that's probably a message that you need to share. It's probably some area of your life that you need to work on if this thing keeps coming up and it's bothering you. So I just want you guys to think about that. If there's something that's bothering you, if it's irritating you, and it keeps coming up, pay attention, take notes. And you never know when you're going to use that, and you're going to have to use that to deliver a message. So I just want everyone to know, if there is something on your heart that irritates you, frustrates you, makes you mad, it's probably something that you need to change. No one else but you. And so I really want you to talk a bit about some of my own frustrations, and then also some of my own experiences in the church. Now, church is not all bad. It's an amazing thing. It's full of people. It's a great place. For you guys who may not know, let me just go ahead. I'm Bianca. I'm a professional counselor, and I'm also the authenticity coach. I'm also a Christian. And so I love Jesus. I love God with all my heart. Totally not against him, but I do know the church is made up of people, and we are broken people. That's why we go to church. And so, but what I have found, that there has been situations where I have sat in church and just felt very dishonored, as a woman, as a human being, even as just as a human being, but especially as a woman. And so one of the things I wanted to talk about is how we have kind of taken that on, how it's impacted us. And so I just want to use just how it's impacted me, shall I say, and then how I've kind of moved through it. But I just first want to talk, I've written notes so I don't forget, because normally I forget. So one of the first things I want to talk about is a comment. These are things I've noticed. And I don't know if you ever sit in church, and unfortunately sometimes I notice it's the predominantly Black churches, which is another thing that I want to talk about, which is kind of sad and kind of disheartening, because I have sat in different ones. One of the things I've noticed is it's often directed at the women. When they talk about marriage, it's often directed at the woman first. You'll notice in a sermon, you might hear things like, if you're waiting on a husband, and then like 2 minutes later, they're talking about, oh yeah, and yeah, men, if you're waiting on a wife. These are the things you need to do to get your husband. And then they'll totally miss men, and not even, sometimes they don't even say anything to the men about wanting a wife, which is dishonoring to men, us, and it's also dishonoring to the men because they also want to be married too, and you kind of miss them out. Things you need to do if you need a husband. One of the things that really irritated me, and I put on the post, is about women, you have to keep your legs closed. And I'm like, so doesn't it take two? It takes two to tango. And so that just really got me frustrated, really irritated me. Also, I felt some shame and guilt. I am celibate, I'm not a virgin, I have had sex. And so it also experiencing some condemnation, also as well as some frustration. And so, yeah, keeping your legs closed. I often have found that the ownership for celibacy has been on the woman versus on the man. And it takes two. It takes two to tango. It takes two to do these things, and the responsibility has not been on us. And so what I have found, me personally, as I'm myself, like I can even give an example. I remember going to a group for women who were trying to maintain celibacy. And there was a men's group too. But the women showed up, but the men hardly showed up. Now, it's also about society and the message that's delivered to men. But it just shows how much was kind of drummed in. Yes, Suzanne. Yeah, men need to keep their ticks in their pants too. You're right. So it also just shows the, you know, how much that is pushed, not just in society, but in the church as well. Because it can be pushed in society, but we are the church and we can make a difference, and we do have a responsibility to make a difference. So if it's pushed in the world, then it needs to be different in the church. But it's not happening. Things are changing, but it's still the same in some places. And so, yeah, I just found that ownership for celibacy is totally on the women. Just a lot of shame and a lot of guilt on the women about keeping your legs closed, making sure you do this to get a man, do this to become a wife. Like I really, like there's sometimes I feel sorry for the men, because there is hardly any groups as much as there are for women about being a wife. There's not this many about being a husband and things like that. But there's just this push for growth and development for the women. And you're like, what about the men? And often these groups are pushed between being a wife, being a mother, not often so much as on your career, and not so much as on just being you and embracing who you are and celebrating who you are. And so that has, that's been a hindrance even for myself, and I know it's been a hindrance for some other women. So just that dishonoring of women and that disrespect of women. And so it just continues and continues. And I'll be honest, women, we have to be the one that makes the change. If you're waiting for someone else to make the change, it's not going to be happening. I was the one who made the change. And so you have to take that step. What's that? Someone said, I feel like conditioning begins in childhood. Conditioning does begin in childhood, absolutely. I don't disagree with that, but it can change. And if we think about who God is and his character is love, his character is empathy, his character is acceptance, his character is equality, then we would hope that that would also change and be able to change what we learned in childhood and just embrace who we are in Christ and receiving his love and changing in that. So I don't disagree that it starts in childhood, but it can change. And church is kind of like that incubator for the change through the love and through the acceptance. But very good point. And so I just got frustrated, right? And like I said, it is totally unfair. It's disrespectful. And I mentioned this, if you guys didn't listen to my broadcast, I was on live. So if you guys saw this on live last week, and I talked about the sexual desires of women were not recognized. I talked about the clitoris being the only organ in the body that is created for sexual desire. Everything else has another purpose. The penis has another purpose. The vagina has another purpose. The clitoris does not have another purpose. However, men are more accepting of their sexual urges more so than women. And so that's another thing that's kind of pushed down. And I believe that does start in childhood, that does start in society, but then that's also continued in the church. The church is meant to be a different place. However, I have mentioned this. We are all a broken people, and so we also can't expect perfection in the church. And so that's why I'm speaking up, so that we can make a change, and we can take a stand and make those changes that are taking place, because we are a broken people. And so it does take us to heal ourselves and then be able to share that with everyone else. Yes, the church sets the tone, but the church is the people, and we as the people have a responsibility to heal our brokenness. I just want to say that again. Yes, the church sets this tone, but the church is the people, and the people have a responsibility to heal their brokenness and allow for that transformation to take place. I just want to add on that, like, we're responsible just as much as everyone else in there. And I will say this, I think one of the reasons why we don't speak up, like, man, ladies, got me off track, but we're so powerful. Like, we're so powerful. We have so much good things within us. And I definitely believe it's a lie of the enemy that we can't speak up, or we can't do these things, or we can't go forth in career, or we can't preach, or we can't do this, all these things, because of the greatness. So it's kind of like, I always think about, like, when the enemy's ever coming to attack me and it's coming on strong, it reminds me of the greatness I have, because he won't be coming for me if I wasn't great. People don't hate you because nothing's good. People don't like you because there's so much good in you. And just think about how much women are attacked and how much goodness are in women. Like, you guys have to remember that, and you have to stand in that. And sometimes it's hard to stand in that, but I just want you guys to remember, like, there is so much greatness within you. And you have to take those steps to kind of figure that out. And it's a journey, it's a process. It doesn't happen just overnight. Was that, yes, it can start in church, but when folks step out of these doors, yeah. And so, yeah, it starts in the church, and that's the difference between sitting down and listening to a sermon, and then versus sitting down, listening to a sermon and allowing transformation to take place. So if we're in church doing one thing and doing outside the church, that means we're not allowing transformation to take place. So that's another thing that's really important, is that we have to allow transformation to take place for those things to happen. I totally agree with that. So, you know, with all this disrespect, I would personally ask myself, like, and I know this is part of my own insecurities, my own stuff, dealing with, you know, thinking I'm unlovable, and my own issues with perfectionism, wanting to be accepted, not wanting to be rejected. But I would ask myself, well, what's wrong with me? When I would sit and listen to these sermons, it was confusing, it was questioning, am I doing enough? Am I doing right? Just experiencing the dishonor. I was actually taking blame for myself. I was actually, which is always the bad thing to do, self-reflection, but self-reflection doesn't always have to be about blaming yourself, because we are not always responsible. And I'm definitely some person who takes on a bit more blame than I need to. And so I was taking on the blame, and I was like, well, what's wrong with me? I was taking on the shame. I was taking on the guilt because I wasn't a virgin. And like, am I doing it right? Am I pleasing God? And was questioning myself in that process of the dishonoring, because I looked up to the pastor. You know, I respected them. And so that's why I also always think it's so important to develop your own relationship with God and have an understanding of his character for yourself, so that you know when it's lining up, and you know his voice, and you know his love, and you don't question it. And so God created us equal. Like, he created women equal. I know there was the fall where it was talking about women would serve their husbands and things like that. But when Jesus came, it changed. I cannot remember the scripture. I think it's in Galatians 3, and it talks about now all things are equal. There's no Jew or Gentile, male or female. Like, we're all equal. There's no one who's higher than the other. And so we're to be all treated the same. So and I want to say, it's not okay to be dishonored. And if you're feeling uncomfortable and you're feeling that thing, like, I don't want you to leave the church. I would like you, if you can, to share that with your pastor if you're in a position to do so. If it is still not being listened to, then maybe you may have to do something else, but you don't have to sit under that if you're constantly being dishonored and disrespected as a woman in the church. So one of the things that this has kind of caused to happen to me personally is I have realized that it's created for me, and then for other women, is this like box. Like, just imagine a box, and the box is limited for women in the church, right? It's just this limited box. And it's like, this is the path, this is what we have to do. There's more of a focus on our role, and there's a difference between role and identity. And I'm actually going to talk about role versus identity with Faith Joyner on Instagram next week. But it's, the identity is who we are and the role is what we do. But there's more an emphasis on the women in the church being a wife, being mother, maybe you're married, maybe you're serving, whatever the case may be, but those roles are limited and they're in a box. And if you see, like, I didn't watch the Grammys, but I was reading the headlines and I was seeing like just how much women were just standing up, and like the headline was like, well, how would you sum up the Grammys? And it was like, it was all about the women. And that just showed me, you know, things are changing and women are really making a difference and speaking up and allowing their greatness to show through, versus instead of just being in this box. And so this box for me is like, this is the only way, this is the only way to do it. This is all that, you know, you have available to you as a woman, which is not true. So for me, I have a really deep desire, still desire it, to be married and to have children. And I remember when back in, so I've probably been celibate, I think it's 8 years now. I think 7 or 8. I think it's 8. And I remember when I first started, it was about me wanting to be married, wanting to be in a relationship, wanting to have children, which is not a bad thing. And but I also know that that desire kind of made me settle, because I was just in that box, like, this is what I want to do, this is what it is, this is who I am, this is what it is about being a woman, just sitting in this box. And just having this limited expectation. So when you're in a box, expectations are limited. And I still have that desire. I'm not married. I don't have any children, and it's still a deep desire that I have. And there are times when thanks. There are times when, you know, it pops up. But I remember at the beginning of my celibacy journey, it was like, you had to follow this path. In order to follow this path and be perfect, then you'll get a husband. And that was like literally my focus. And however, along the path, along the way, because I was willing to try different things, because I was frustrated, I was overwhelmed, and I was desperate, I was hurt, and I was feeling unloved. And I found my identity in Christ. I found how much God loved me. In going to church and serving and being in ministry, I found God's will. So like after finding my identity, after having a time, after finding God's will, like I wanted to be a counselor, I was going to go back. I was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to meet my husband. No, it didn't happen. Of course, because you know I'm single. It did not happen. I was devastated. I was like, what is going on? I'm following all these rules. I'm doing everything some people are saying to do. I'm listening to your word. I'm following God. Like I'm like, what is next? Like I was frustrated. So I went back to school, got my graduate degree, was doing really well. Yo, in the middle of my graduate degree, so I have 3 sisters, and it's my youngest. Yeah, my youngest sister. She got engaged. She's 10 years younger than me. And I remember just being so like hurt. Like, I don't get it. Like, what did I do wrong? Like, what am I missing? You know, this idea, this formula, and this box, which I'm following, which I'm doing, which I'm in the wheel. How did she get married before me? That's not meant to happen. Your younger sister's not meant to get married before you. And I remember being so hurt, so upset. And I was still happy for her. I still celebrated her. I was still happy. And I remember talking to one of my friends about it. And she's like, it's okay. You can be upset. And I was upset. But I celebrated. I was in the wedding. You know, after I got over that. But it took a lot of frustration, a lot of talking, and just, I feel like in that, I was like, okay, I wasn't done. My desire hasn't changed. However, I became more open to possibilities, and I began to be like, okay, well, it's not happening yet. What do I need to do? How can I live my life? I was realizing that I can't wait for a husband to do this or do all these things. I have to live my life. Like, I have a calling, I have things to do, I have things that God wants me to do. And so I have to continue. And so I did. Yeah, like I said, I was her bridesmaid in the wedding. And so then I graduated school, right? And they're like, okay, I'm definitely gonna meet someone now. Oh, wait, hold on, wait. No, stop. Before I even talk about that. Yes, while I was still in school. I think so. I don't remember. But when I was still in school, getting ready to graduate. And I was still in school. And yes, continue. So when I was still in school, then I met this guy, right? So by this time, you know, I've been celibate. I'm like, I'm great with boundaries, da, 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 da. And I remember seeing him and I liked him, but at the time he had a girlfriend. Yo, if you like somebody, tell God and admit to yourself. I was like, oh no, he's cute, but no big deal, like whatever. But I was so attracted to him. Like, if you're attracted to somebody, please, like, admit it to yourself. Don't ignore those attractions. Because if you don't acknowledge it, it can lead you to places that, if you're trying to be celibate anyway, it can lead you to places that you don't want to be. And so he was really cute. Like, we had great conversations. Yo, I could say, like, great conversations that stimulated my mind and things like that. He looked good and everything. We had a lot in common. Well, almost everything. This is why we always talk about values. Know your values, know what's important, know your non-negotiables. And so that was really, really, but our spiritual values were different. And so I got caught up in that. I almost had sex. I could have easily had sex too, but I didn't, by the grace of God. One, because I know I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't being honest about what was going on, what I desired. And two, I wanted attention, like, for real. Like, you're over, like, we talked about desires, wanting to be needed, wanting to be loved, wanting to be accepted, wanting to be known. All those things are important, and they're still important. And so you were thinking, oh, well, maybe, like, maybe if, you know, we'll date a bit and he'll like me, and maybe he'll end up loving the Lord, and you send scriptures and all that. That stuff don't work. Like, if he loves Jesus, he loves Jesus. That's it. But you can't, like, make someone change. Like, no. And that took And I really beat myself up because I was like, I thought I knew better. I thought I learned all these things, and but I learned a lot about myself, and I kept continuing and I kept going. And so in all that we do, like we may make mistakes or things that we're not happy about, but you have to keep going. You can't just be like, oh, this is it, like I'm just gonna do whatever. Like you just have to keep going. And so I met the boy. Like I think it took me maybe a year and a half to also get over that. Like things just were going back and forth, and it didn't help that we worked together. That didn't help at all. Don't date people you work with unless you really know it's going to go further. But so I thought, okay, once I graduated, so I graduated okay, and I thought, oh yeah, once I graduate, it'll be okay. Maybe I'll meet my husband then. No. But I still continued, and like now, I'm a therapist, and I have an amazing career. I have amazing business, and as an entrepreneur, and it's still like you think, well, how did I end up here? I followed this, and so as life changed and I changed, I realized that I had to get rid of this box. I had to get rid of these expectations. They were limited. They were not of God. And I needed to be me, and I needed to learn how to thrive regardless of, being married. And it's not just about being married. Some people are waiting to be married. Some people are waiting to have kids. Some people are waiting to get out of debt. Some people are waiting to buy their house. Some people are waiting to not have a roommate anymore. Like if you're waiting for all these things to be you and thrive, you're missing time. You're missing great times. You're missing so much. Like you're just missing so much. And so every time I've gone through this, I'm continuing to transform and continuing to step out of the box and realizing like this box doesn't work. It's not who I am. It's not who I called to be. It's not who God called me to be. And so I have to find a way along the way. And so all these resources and things. So after school, I met another boy. I met another one. This time he was a Christian, but just because like they're Christian, like I'm kind of over that. I'm being for real, like just because they're Christian, like I get excited, like I stopped doing that too. Like just trust God. And that didn't work out. So I went on another roller coaster and another, like this happens maybe 1 or 2, 3 times a year, where I'm still feeling hurt and still feeling like, what's God doing? Really desiring, having this deep desire. Because, when people come to me, they're like, well, you moved from America, you're doing, like people tell me all the time, I'm so proud of you. You're doing so well. You've moved from America, you went back to school, like you got a good job, like all those things are great, but it doesn't negate the fact that I still desire to be married and have kids. However, I'm also making a choice to thrive despite that not happening, because I already have what's greater. Like if you have Jesus, like you already have what's greater. And the way the world and the way the church often puts it is like, you're waiting to have this husband till you have this great thing. And that's not true. That's a box, and that's limited, and that's not what God is about. He's about unlimited expectations. Like I always think about doing immeasurably more than you could ever imagine. And so after going on the roller coaster and still having that deep pain, still like, God, what are you doing? Like still frustrated. Why am I not married? Why don't I have kids? Like I still have those moments. Like I feel like I had one maybe a month ago or a few weeks ago. Maybe. And so maybe. And so I just want people to know, like, I'm not perfect. Like I have those moments, but I'm still thriving despite all of that. And so something I didn't want to forget to tell you. And then I found another boy that I fancied. Thought it was even more. Didn't work out. Do you know what I realized? I realized that I was still, part of me was still dumbing down myself and who I am and who God has called me to be, and was willing to kind of like put that to the side to help another guy or be with someone else. And like, I just felt in that, I feel like my time of being unmarried, like my friend Suzanne says, don't say single. She says, say unmarried, because single is not in the Bible. I just wanted to share that did not come from me, that came from Suzanne. But just in this space of being unmarried, I have realized and become stronger in who I am and who God has called me to be, and the greatness, and not to dumb it down. Like, I need somebody who's going to be my #1 fan and support that, versus me pushing that down. And I think that is so key for ladies. Like, we're often told to push it down or wait till this happens. I remember I was having a conversation with my friend. She was like, often women don't take a career advancement because they're like, well, what if I get pregnant? Well, what if you do? Just take the career, and if you get pregnant, you figure it out. You figure it out. And so you just, in being me, I have just thrived in just all these experiences, and still having the desire and still letting it down, but I have not let it consume me. I know people out there who are consumed with not having a husband, not having kids, not having the right job, not having enough money, being in debt, issues at work. Like, I know people who are consumed and they cannot move until things get better. You can't do that. Like, you're not it. Because what you are doing, if you are waiting to something is going to happen, then you're not going to thrive. But if you choose to be you and thrive in the moment, those things open up. Yes, 100% you on full bus. Like, don't change, don't dumb down. And so I'm thankful, like, those situations have not worked out. That doesn't mean I don't still have the desire, but it has enabled me to thrive. Something I wanted to share with you guys. See, that's why I wrote notes, because I always forget, but I'm not forgetting. And so I just want to share that with you guys. Ready, know who is great, that I have what is greater. The other thing I wanted to talk about as well is that when you make that choice to be you, you don't, it helps with not feeling overwhelmed, not feeling confused, not feeling condemned, not feeling exhausted, not being an unlovable. Like, it really starts to tap into those things, where those pains, with those points that you're like frustrated with, and you're feeling like you're alone, you're feeling disconnected, you're feeling overwhelmed, because you keep waiting for these things. You're in this box thinking, I'm waiting to spring out the box until all these things happen. Like, no, you have to spring out the box despite those things not happening, in order for you to thrive and really be who God's called you to be, and enjoy life and play and have fun. Like, that stuff is paralyzing. And so, like I said, we already have what's great, and then you can do that standing on the fact that you already have what is greater if you're a Christian, and that is Jesus, and that is his love, and that is his acceptance. And if you don't know that, then that's something that's going to help build you up, because having a revelation of his love for you is going to help you thrive. And so one of the other things that I have realized recently is that a lot of these things that we're waiting for, like time, like realizing I've been in bondage to time, realizing that some of my pain and some of my frustrations and some of my hurts and some of my anger at God has been come to my bondage of time, and me wanting it to happen in this time order. I've been reading a lot about the 2 different types of time in Greek, which is chronos, which is chronological, which is more quantitative. It's about minutes and seconds. It's about measurement. Excuse me. Where kairos is about qualitative, it's about opportune time, it's about right time. And so what we do with that is that when we're focused on the chronos time, which is like this should happen in this order at this time, and we're not open to the curious time where God works, or opportune in the season, we get stuck in bondage to that, and we get frustrated and we get hurt, and we wonder what's happening because it's not happening in the order and the way it's meant to go. And that is what I was doing in this box, that it should happen like this and it should look like this. And so when it wasn't, that's causing pain, that's causing frustration, versus just being open. Like, I love someone described that chronos time is like you're traveling in a river, where Kira's time is like you're swimming in the lake. Like, you're just chilling, you're just enjoying the season. Your eyes are open to the season, your eyes are open to what's going on, and you're receiving what's going on rather focusing on what's meant to be happening. And I say that because we don't always know how things are meant to go. And so realizing that that other box that I had was not just about being married, but it was like the time that it's meant to happen. The time you're meant to be out of debt, the time you're meant to have your own home, the time you're meant to be this in your career, the time it's not happening. Like, I don't have enough time, or I don't have enough time, or I'm rushing, or I miss the time. First of all, you can't miss anything. Like, the grace of God, the grace of God is just going to override anything that you missed anyway. And so that was another one that I was really feeling like I was in bondage to, was time. And so having to work through that and own that and see that, and realize how paralyzing it was, has helped me to step out that box, and thrive, and just into the unlimited expectations, and just enjoying the day and not being as stressed out when I'm out that bondage of time. And so I know that some people have, let me see how to say this. You have deep desires, and you are wondering, when is it going to happen? Or frustrated that it's not happening. And some of that may just be that bondage of time. I always think that you're going to have tough moments, but which are normal, but when they consume us, those deep desires consume us because they're not happening, we get stuck and we're not able to thrive and be who God's called us to be. We're not able to have that authentic connection. We begin to isolate. We begin to think we're the only one. We begin to think that God has forgotten us, which is not true, which is a lie from the pit of hell, because God sees you, God knows you, and He knows everything about you. Like, I always love Psalms 139. Like, He knows us so intimately. Like, it talks about, like, He searched us. Like, when you think about research, all right, let's think about when you meet a guy, or you like a guy, and you go on Google and you Google him, or you go on his Instagram page and all these social media, and you do all this research. Why do you do that? Because you want to know more about them. It's the same thing God does. He searches us and researches us to know more about us, because He loves us, and because He cares about us, and because He sees us. And I think that remembering that has helped me through my deep desires of not having kids. Like, honestly, like, if I died tomorrow, I wouldn't really care. Like, I know I've left a legacy. It wouldn't bother me, except for that. That would be the only thing. I've had a great life. I've enjoyed my life. That would be the only thing. But I have left a legacy. And so that has enabled me, knowing He sees me, knowing His love, has enabled me to thrive. And so I just want the same for you ladies. I want you guys to be in a position where you can thrive, be in a position where you can experience God's love, despite your deepest desire not happening yet, where you're out of bondage of time, where you're not feeling stuck. or you can't move, or you can't go forward because you're waiting for these things to happen, and just live in that greatness of who God's called you to be in an authentic connection. And so I just wanted to share that. And I have created that space with a limited amount of 12 women in my Permission to Be You and Thrive online group coaching program. So you don't even have to come all together. And I do it in a group because we thrive in group and we are made for community. And I have had some of my best healings in group and in community. And it's an 8-week program. Registration ends next week. And it starts March the 4th. And I'm going to, I think the website is on here. If you're on Instagram, you can go to my link to book a coaching call, because I always like to talk to you guys just to make sure it's a good fit. And I would love for you guys to join. If you feel like this is you, like you're just tired of being exhausted, overwhelmed, and stuck in this box, and feeling like you can't move until you reach such and such, but you really know there's more to your life, there's more to who you are, you know you're great. Like I remember sitting in my therapy session, like I was so frustrated one time. This is when I first went back, like 2014. And she was like, what is it? And I was like, I know I'm destined for greatness. I know there's something inside of me. I just don't know, and I want to do it. And I just keep getting stuck. Like I knew it. I just knew it. But I was getting stuck. And I was getting caught up in all these other things that were going on. And so if you know that's you, just reach out and let me know and join this program. Like I promise you, I know people are nervous. Like it is for Black Christian women. And I know you guys are nervous. Like I don't want to share all my business, and you can share what you want. But do you want to continue to have that mindset of I don't want to share all my business, which is like being stuck in the box? Or do you want to step out of the box of limited expectations and into the unlimited expectations of God? Like, what do you want to do? If you're still not sure, you can also join my Facebook group. I have a private Facebook group, and so you can also join that. That's on Instagram link. And wait, let me put this in here. I'll put the link for the Facebook group in the comments here on Facebook, but if you're in Instagram, it's the link. So if you just like want to have a toe in and you're not sure, you can join the Facebook Instagram group, Permission to Be You Thrive, which is a private group. And I'll just be sharing a lot of thriving stories and resources and stepping outside of the box and what that looks like, and just having conversation and community there. But thank you. If anyone has any questions, I think I saw most of the comments on here. I just and responded to most of them here on Instagram. But if you have a comment or a question, just write them in here. Let me just look. Yes, Suzanne, you want people to see the real you on full go. Yeah. That's been one of the things that's been so key. Like you have to show who you are. Like don't dumb it down. Be 100% on full blast. Yes. Yeah, just trust in God. So if you don't have any more questions or comments, it's been a pleasure talking to you guys and just connecting with you on here. I really do love these lives. I'll probably do another one this week. I might do a random one, just sharing a bit more on what it is to give yourself permission and be you. And so thank you so much for your time, and have a good evening.